Airbnb removes your listing. They don't tell you. They will give you a heads up.
Today, I'm super excited to be here with Melissa d'Orange. She's the managing partner at Humming Host Vacation Rentals. What would you say is your edge as an operator?
I come from the hotel world, worked in hotels for 12 years before launching the company. Sustainability is a big focus of mine. I am very concerned about the planet, about what we do on a daily basis, about the waste that we generate, etc. And so I try to bring some sustainability practice, specifically zero waste practices, into the business, which is going to be into the operations, but also into the guest journey. We calculated that only with the 14 units, we were saving about 8,000 cups per year that was not going to the landfill. So now with 36 properties, it's very simple, very easy, but it has a big impact.
Where would you like to be and what's ahead for you?
My goal in the next few years is to find
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hospitality Edge podcast, where we bring together what we think are two sides of the same coin, real estate and hospitality, and really where our goal is to bring together hospitality professionals, operators, investors, entrepreneurs, and leaders so they can tell us about their stories and they can tell us about what they've learned, maybe even some of the mistakes they've made along the way so we don't have to make those same mistakes ourselves. And today I'm super excited to be here with Melissa d'Orange. She's the managing partner at Humming Host Vacation Rentals. How are you doing today, Melissa? And where are you taking the call from?
Hi, Sebastian. Thank you for having me. Doing great. Taking this call from one of our properties here in Nashville, Tennessee.
Amazing. Yeah, I always forget to ask this question at the beginning of each episode because I feel like it's interesting to know how many operators from so many different markets around the US and sometimes even around the world have already been on the show. So Melissa, let's start with you telling us a little bit about where you're at now in terms of just at a super high level, like what do you do for a living, right? And then we'll go into the back end story of how you got to where you are today and what you've learned along the way. So what is Humming Host and what do you do for a living?
Humming Host is a short-term rental property management company.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I launched it at the end of 2021. And we operate only in Nashville, Tennessee, which is where I live.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have about 36 properties. We are growing. We are scaling a little bit every month. So we are in a growing phase of the journey of the
Mm-hmm.
company. That's my full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
I do this day and night.
Exactly.
We,
Day and night. It's good that you specify that you do it at night as well. 24/7.
yep, with a small team.
Awesome. And if I were to ask, what do you think sets you apart as a company? What is different in the way that you're trying to deliver hospitality, or what would you say is your edge as an operator?
One is gonna be my background in hotels. I come from the hotel world, worked in hotels 15 years, 12 years before launching the company.
Hmm.
Uh, the other one is I'm very, sustainability is a big focus of mine in my daily, day to day. I am concerned, very concerned about the planet, about what we do on a daily basis, about the waste that we generate, etc. And
Hmm.
so I try to bring some sustainability practice, specifically zero waste practices, into the business, which is going to be into the operations, but also into the guest journey.
Hmm.
I really at Humming Host, because we are in Nashville, our clientele is essentially from the US, a little bit from Canada, a little bit from the UK, and essentially from the US, everywhere in the US. And so I started to really enjoy explaining to guests what we do, what they can do, what is possible, what is easy and possible to do on a daily basis to reduce waste.
Hmm.
And, it's become, I think, part of our DNA.
That's amazing. And we'll talk more about how we can learn from what you're doing from a sustainability perspective and why that's so important. I want to get into the background story of, well, you basically studied, political science, and then you told yourself you wanted to go back to your hospitality roots, and that's where you did an MBA in hospitality. I want to know, let's start there. Like, what do you learn at an MBA in hospitality? I'm sure a lot of things, but what are some things that have stayed with you that you feel like actually have an impact in the way you do things today? If we go all the way back to like the education that you had at a very high level around hospitality.
We learn a lot of it's high level and also more yeah, high level things, but also practice marketing. Marketing for hotels and hotel groups and travel agencies was one of my courses. Revenue management and pricing, that's a big one, especially in hotels.
Mhm,
There's not a single hotel group that operates without a revenue management department
mhm,
that oversees all the aspects, business groups, airlines. You have your corporate travelers, you have your leisure. So all those segments, and what is the ideal mix
mhm,
of all the segments for the hotel, and they work closely with the sales department on that.
mhm,
Um, you also learn um, marketing, revenue management, pricing, business in general, accounting, specifically, a P&L for a hotel. How does it
mhm.
work? etc.
Now, I'm always curious when people have a traditional background, like educational background in hospitality, because I feel like, especially nowadays, this industry, especially short-term rentals, attracts people from so many fields, from tech, or I've had people in here that used to be private equity, or people that used to be like whatever artists, like all sorts of people end up somehow one way or another in this industry, for better or for worse. Uh, and it's interesting when people have a background that is specifically in hospitality. I'm always curious to know what are other people missing out from not having had that traditional hospitality education. So you just mentioned a few things, right? The solid foundational elements. What about after you went on and you started working at different hotel groups? Tell us what you learned in those 12 to 15 years of having worked with different hotel groups about what hospitality is all about in practice, and what are some things that you have taken from those years of experience and try to put in place from the get-go when starting your short-term rental management company.
I learned everything. I learned everything about operations and sales. So I started in sales, um, group sales for a small hotel group, Mama Shelter, who that was only in France in the beginning, but now they are in a lot of other countries in Europe, and they are part of a big group, Accor. But it was a small group at the time, and so everything needed to be built. And I specifically enjoyed uh, being in a startup company that is actually developing, growing, building the culture, developing the culture inside the company, etc.
Mhm,
It was very fun. It's lifestyle fun, very fun, which was great because at the end of the day, in hotels you have those very corporate hotels with a corporate mindset where you want to do as you want to ensure great check-in, great check-out, good operations all the way. But they tend to sometimes, I know it's getting better and better, but sometimes forget about the fact that people travel for fun. and they travel for the pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And so, originally when I think hotel, I think like you have to provide a great experience. It's dream, it's not just corporate. so
Mm-hmm.
so I chose more like fun lifestyle hotel brands. That's
Mm-hmm.
really where I wanted to learn. After that, I worked in London for a little, came back to Paris to open a hotel. So I was part of the opening team of a hotel as a guest services manager.
Mm-hmm.
That was Hoxton, Hoxton, in Paris. An amazingly beautiful hotel in an old historic house. Um, that was that belonged to a noble, with like old stables that were transformed into meeting rooms, etc. I mean, it's just a fabulous property,
Mm-hmm.
uh, where I that's when I started to be in operations, to work in ops really. That was phenomenal. I learned a lot. I learned a lot. I learned to manage a team. I learned to manage. I learned to sell the hotel. I learned to how to help everybody in the hotel, the employees, the team, but also the guests,
Mm-hmm.
and them through their journey. I learned about services, about what it is to bring uh, excellent customer service
Mm-hmm.
to the table, and that was great.
And in terms of like, let's say, people management and training and just standards of quality and excellence around service as a whole, like, what is it that you have applied in your management company now in Humming Host that comes from that, I would say, structure that hotels can have, right? And teach, right? From having like clear SOPs to clear training manuals or whatever that might be. Like, what is one thing that you have put in place since day one or since very early on at Humming Host that you think comes directly from you having had that exposure to how hotels do things, and that has been beneficial for you?
Yeah, so first, when I started in Nashville, I was managing a boutique apartment hotel of 14 units, and I was doing it on my own. I
Hmm.
didn't have a team, and so I was just applying everything I knew about hotels into that property
Hmm.
without thinking about writing down standard operating procedures.
Okay.
And so when I launched my company, because the owner of the property sold to multiple buyers, and therefore, if I wanted to continue to manage this place, I had to change the structure and be actually a property manager.
Hmm.
Um, I I started to work on now having multiple owners, to help to deal with, still all the guests to deal with, of course, and more of being also an entrepreneur, where you also have to consider, setting up your LLC, setting up your contracts, etc. I mean, there are all the aspects of it, bank accounts, and all that. So it went all very fast, and standard operating procedures is something I started to do a little bit later.
Hmm.
And I now know that I should have done that first. So
Hmm.
when I was part of opening teams of hotels, you spend a lot of time learning the standard operating procedures, and there is one for everything, and everybody has to do the same thing, right? Because you
Hmm.
have so many employees, plus you're in a group where, let's say, the Hoxton, they have one in Rome, they have one in Paris, they have one in Amsterdam, they have some in London, but everybody has to work the same way. So standard operating procedures are very important.
Hmm.
Uh, so today I know how important it is. So now I have those in place.
Hmm.
And it's not that it's hard to do, but it's time consuming, right? And you have to take the
Hmm.
time to do it, and better do it sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, I really wrote them to me, like I do videos, on how to do this and
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
we have an SOP dashboard, and for each department has a SOP, and with the SOP you have a little video, and then the tools that you're going to use in order to complete the SOP. So it could be your property management system, it could be another app, another tool. So it's clear on which tools you're going to use and how you do this and that. So yeah, it is definitely something very important.
Mm-hmm.
And in hotels, it's very precise. So I think I applied that level of specificity
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah,
to.
granularity. Mm-hmm.
I hope that answers the question.
No, it totally does. It totally does. And it's interesting to see that even though you knew and you had been exposed to it, like it was still something that at first is very hard to take the time to do it when you're dealing with so many things. But I guess you realize sooner than most that hey, this has to be in place. Thanks to having been exposed to it before, right? Now let's go back to that timeline. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I just in a way, you also when you start a business, you don't necessarily know exactly how it's going to work out and what's going to be the best
Mm-hmm.
way of doing
No, you
something.
haven't found the process yet. You first
Yeah,
have to define it before you
exactly.
can record it and train on it. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Exactly. So you also need then to update your processes
Oh yeah.
as you do.
No, that's it. And now, like, so the timeline is you go in with this boutique hotel type property where you were basically taking care of everything, and then the owner sells to multiple owners, so you're kind of forced into becoming a management company. Not forced, but thrown into it. The opportunity is there. And so
Mhm.
what happened then? Like how long did it take you to set yourself up as a management company, and was your focus right away, okay, let me go start to get more owners, or what's been sort of the timeline of going from those 14 to the 36 that you have now?
Yeah, at first I wanted to take care of those 14 new owners. So it's like they buy a property, they already have a manager in place, but we don't know each other. I didn't select them, they didn't choose me, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
um, so we need to get to know each other, and with some it clicked very well, with others less. And that was a very important growing path in experience for me, because if you go after a property, go after a specific type of owner or investor, etc., you know who you're gonna target, and then you can tell, okay, they're a right fit or not a right fit.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, when you really want to keep a building because you've built a website for the building, you built a brand for the building, you're recognized, you already have your 100 Google reviews that are all 5 stars, etc., and you
Mm-hmm.
want to keep that. That's really what I thought was the value added there, is that we were coming with we were already in place, and
Mm-hmm.
buyers were buying into an existing hotel, because it was not a real hotel, but I did on-site check-ins. We had a little office a little desk in the lobby. So we were operating like a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then when you go out there and get on more properties, um, to me, I really thought it would be almost easy. Like my vision was, I'm going to duplicate this into another building.
Mm-hmm.
Take a building, build a website, build a brand for it, have an on-site team there, and it's another hotel, except that you have 2, 3, and 4 bedroom units, and you can
Mm-hmm.
host larger groups. Well, it didn't go that way.
Okay.
Because it is, especially in a market like Nashville, that is very competitive and very saturated. You can tell. Developers tend to build to sell, and they don't want to hold, and they don't want to also sell to buyers who are going to be imposed. Like, you have to use this property management company,
Mm-hmm.
and you
Mm-hmm.
don't want that either. You want to be able to choose who you work with. So yeah, so after those 14 properties, it was really like word of mouth. I started to get a lead from a person who needed a place to who needed their who was buying a unit very close to where I was operating this boutique condotel, and needed a place to stay while she was closing on her unit. And so I
Hmm.
hosted her, talked to her, became a client. Then another, the designer I worked with for her unit was working with another owner and told them about me. So it was really like that,
Okay.
word of mouth, and that's how I started to grow outside of one building.
Hmm. And it's interesting. And you never found another opportunity where you could get the entire building as a whole. Everything from there on was individual owners, left and right, pretty much.
Yep.
Hmm. Interesting. So still looking. Yeah. No, it's interesting because yeah, no, it facilitates, and I guess it's one of the main differences, right? When you look at the way that things are done with hotels versus in vacation rental, short-term rental property management, that whole concept of having many owners to deal with changes everything, right?
Mhm.
Because even if you look at it from a pricing perspective, when you're dealing with a hotel, I mean, you can set pricing in a certain way, knowing that worst case, if you sold some property, some units, some rooms for a little bit too cheap, I mean, you still have a lot of
Mhm.
inventory left that you're gonna make that up with by just increasing the rates. Whereas, like on the owner side, like each owner, it's their it's their own asset. You cannot screw it up with one and then be like, okay, I'm gonna just increase it in the next. I mean, I'm not saying you can screw it up with hotels, but I'm saying like there's more room for that type of error, in the sense that if you have a lot of inventory, that's also fine. And also you have control most of the times on like, because you're virtually integrated or whatnot, like you don't have to be telling each room owner so to speak, about like, hey, maintenance needs to be updated here, you need to reinvest in this, you need to reinvest in that, like you so I'm curious to know from your perspective, like what were some of those main challenges and difficulties in going from the hotel world to the vacation rental SDR world, and how did you adapt to that, or what did you manage to do so that even though there are these differences, even though you're dealing with all these owners, you still have some structure on the back end, at least, that is similar to the way that hotels deal with it.
Yes, the level of details that is necessary to prepare for a stay is is very it's a lot. And when you have to do it on multiple properties that are located in different locations on different neighborhoods, etc., it makes the whole thing even more complex. The whole
Hmm.
operation. So for me, it's very important now that I'm 4 years after since I started, and so I can now be a little bit more selective on the properties, and I know where we strike and where we are very good. So it's a little bit easier today. But I would say that to keep the standards that I want to keep in place, it's really well. We do better with condos than houses, for example, and having multiple condos in one building and several buildings in the same area is what I find the best way to be keep being efficient and provide high quality of services.
Hmm. Hmm. And in terms of going back to the sustainability conversation, like these things that you want to put in place from a guest facing perspective are oftentimes more expensive than not doing so in a sustainable way. So how have you managed to make sure that the economics of selecting sustainable products and going and putting in place sustainable best practices, that the economics of that still work? Is it like you have to just choose inventory where the rates are higher and it's a little bit more high end, so you can afford it with your own commission? Is it selling the vision to the owner as far as the kind of impact you want to have on the environment and whatnot, and getting them to pay for part of it with an extra like monthly fee or whatever? Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, how have you managed to put that in place?
Um, to a certain extent, it's passed along to the guest, not the owner, because we build our restocking fees into the cleaning fee.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but the bottom line, when you try to operate more sustainably, is that yes, it takes more time, and therefore the margin is probably lower. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
haven't compared, our margin compared to other companies' margins, but I know that ultimately you have to accept that your margin might be a little bit lower.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
It's a trade-off.
Whereas, if you want to buy only sustainable clothes, you have to accept that it's going to be a little bit more expensive, or that
Mm-hmm.
you need to go to secondhand and vintage stores.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way or the other, it's a little bit of a sacrifice, but
Mm-hmm.
it's for the right cause.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And where does that come from, for you specifically? That level of awareness about you wanting to not just do business in a traditional way, but do business in a way that has a positive impact as well. Like, for you, where does that come from?
That's a big question, but I think more recently, it was moving to New York City.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I lived in many different places, cities, and countries. But moving
Mm-hmm.
to New York City, when I moved to New York City, I was waiting for a visa. So I didn't work for 4 months, 4 or 5 months. And it was the first time in my life that I stopped working and I didn't have much to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what really made me think of how we live, how much we waste. It's having the time
Mm-hmm.
to do more research and do more and read more, etc., etc., but also to reflect on this crazy pace people were going at outside with me not working, so not having to keep up with that pace, and
Mm-hmm.
looking from outside and looking at, oh my God, are you telling me that every single morning you get out of your apartment, you go to Starbucks, you get a cup of coffee, you drink it, and 5 minutes later or less, you throw away a plastic cup, a plastic lid, a plastic straw. Like every single morning you do this. And then maybe at lunch, you get out of the office and you go to a salad bar and you get a salad and it's in a container
Mm-hmm.
with plastic fork, plastic knife, plastic package. You're gonna eat it, and 10 minutes later or less, you're going to put it in the trash. And you do this every single day, and all New Yorkers do it every single day, and in America, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I realized the impact that we were having
Mm-hmm.
on a daily basis. I think that's really what, I mean, in Europe, we have a different lifestyle. I think it's less of single use
Mm-hmm.
um, usage, and also we recycle. We've done that since we are very very young. And here in Nashville, for example, there's very little recycling.
Mm-hmm.
It's still not in the culture. So I could really make the difference, between
Mm-hmm.
London, south of France, and New York City and America.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's interesting. Yeah, no, that just like reflecting, like you said, on how, because you can look at this as like a lot of people, I'm sure, that don't recycle and don't do things to contribute, look at this and are like, oh well, I'm one person, right? Like, what impact is it going to have? But then if you add it up and if you look at the city and then you look at the country, then yeah, all of that, of course, has to start somewhere. So where do you start, right, as a property manager, when it comes to still trying to do your part? I mean, what was your journey like, and what was the first thing you did, and then as time has gone by, what else have you been able to put in place to continue trying to be more sustainable?
Yes. So during the pandemic, I studied zero waste practices for companies, how
Hmm.
to implement zero waste practices for companies, and basically what you learn is how to not generate waste, because
Hmm.
once it's already, you can recycle, but recycle is really like the last recourse, because recycling is hard. I mean,
Hmm.
nobody understands really what recycling means. And when you start telling, oh, there's plastic number 2, number 4, number 6, this one is recyclable, this one is not, like, too complex. So how do
Hmm.
you not generate any recyclables or any trash? That's
Hmm.
what you, and at a bigger scale, because it's for companies. So
Hmm.
that definitely helps. And also working for one hotel, which is a five-star hotel brand that is sustainable, um, also helped me understanding the guest journey, what you could implement.
Hmm.
And so when I started as a property manager, I asked myself, the question, what can we improve so that it is more, so that it's not going to generate waste. And one
Hmm.
of the easiest place I started was the coffee maker.
Hmm.
Most properties had the Keurig coffee maker. So it comes with coffee cups, coffee pods.
Hmm. Hmm.
They are single-use coffee pods, so you put it in the coffee maker, pour coffee, and throw it away.
Hmm.
So what I did is that I partnered with a local coffee shop, and they would ground the coffee specifically for that Keurig. We did several tests. It was fun,
Okay.
and they would put it in huge bins for us, sealed bins, and so we could actually then put it in the units, so that with reusable K-cups, those little metallic reusable K-cups that you can buy on Amazon, reusable K-cups, where so guests would need to put the coffee in the cake in the cup, and then pour themselves a coffee. It's really, there's not no difference for the guests,
Hmm.
if if not the taste, because it tastes much better.
Hmm.
So almost no difference for the guest, and for us, it's a little bit more logistic behind. But it's actually we save money on it, because it costs less to do it this way than buying tons of reusable of single use K cups. So
Okay.
that's good, and we calculated that only with the 14 units um, we were saving about 8,000 cups per year from the landfill that was not going to the landfill.
Wow.
So
8,000.
yeah, so now with 36 properties, you can imagine the impact. It's very
Wow.
little, very simple, very easy, but it has a big impact. And you can think about that for everything. On top of this, in this property, we offer a compost service. So we contracted with a compost company in Nashville. And so our guests have a little compost bin in their kitchen, so they can, once they're done with the coffee, they can actually put it in the compost bin. We collect the food scraps, give it to Compost Nashville. They make compost out of it, and give it to farmers.
Hmm.
And what farmers do, they produce food for restaurants where our guests end up going and enjoying. So it's kind of a loop.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I the concept of the circular economy, right? Like how you can also use waste. That's what would have been waste somewhere as input back in the supply chain to avoid it just going to waste. That's super interesting. And what else from the zero waste best practices when you were learning about it? Like, what else were you inspired by in terms of how other companies, maybe in the hospitality sector, like what does this look like when you do this, like when you have all the resources to do this all the way through, like all in, right? As far
Mhm.
as like what else is possible? You gave an example with the coffee cups, well, instead of the one use ones, doing what you just said. What else either have you been able to put in place, or want to put in place at some point, and it's just a matter of time?
Yeah, everything really, from the supplies you provide to your guests. It could be anything, from laundry pods, dishwasher pods, to tote bags. We give tote bags to guests, fabric tote bags, so that they can go grocery shopping with a tote bag and they don't have to use a plastic bag. Because unfortunately, in Nashville, lot of grocery stores use plastic bags. Um, I mean, it's really anything. When we design a place, and if we work with our designer, or if the owner chooses to work with our designer, we try to also always uh, pick more sustainable items. Once we are done installing, we break everything down, bring it to the recycling. We recycle all the cardboard. Um, when we try to also pick like vintage pieces, shop in local shops
Hmm.
in Nashville or outside of Nashville, could be even outside of Nashville. Um, yeah, everything you do, you can think in a more sustainable way of doing it. Yeah.
That's interesting. No, that's awesome, and great example. And thanks for sharing some ideas on how other operators can also do this themselves. Now, another theme that we discussed about in terms of what you're very focused on is the idea of maintaining very high quality standards despite the scale, like despite adding more properties. So, what has worked for you in terms of trying to not lose out on quality standards as you've more than doubled, right, the number of properties that you have in your portfolio since you started?
Yeah, we I don't know. Sometimes I feel like 36 properties in 4 years is not that fast.
No,
I feel
right.
like we keep
But
all the
it's good. You wanna grow in a pace that you're comfortable with. And what's the point of adding 200 properties if you're giving out, excuse my French, a shitty service, right? So I guess it
yeah,
starts by that, is what you're saying. Like, starts by realizing that you don't have to grow as fast as long as you are doing so sustainably, and with the right quality standards in place. That makes sense.
yeah. It's sometimes it's also about slowing down and not going too fast in the sense that you can onboard a property. We have a whole onboarding process, and sometimes you're tempted to go a little bit faster because you want to open a little bit faster, or the owner wants to open a little bit faster, etc. But whenever we try to rush too much, if I don't know my team is fully knowledgeable about the property, about where to park, about how to access the property. We also work with virtual assistants who are not based in the States. And so we take time to train them and to make videos, and they're really part of the team, like if they were here, but they're not present and they will never walk the property. Maybe one day.
Hmm. Hmm.
But so we need to make a lot of videos and an appliance list of, okay, what type of fridge, what type of microwave, etc., so that if there's a problem we can. So all this we want to do it before we open, because once we open, as we all know, then that's it. You start booking back to back reservations,
Hmm.
or at least that's the pace here in Nashville. It's like back to back. You have to be prepared. So so spend a little bit more time upfront before we open. So we could not open a place in 2 weeks, for example. We need a little bit more time.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's speed is important, but not at the sacrifice of quality, right? Not at the sacrifice of uh, I would say also peace of mind, and just like, having a team that's going to be sustainability applies towards the environment, but it also implies internally towards the team, right? If the team is
Exactly.
burnt out and going crazy because you're trying to go live in a week where in reality you need a month or two, then yeah, there's some people that might be thrown off by that. But I think that if the end result is significantly better in terms of the quality of, the listing when it launches, the quality of the property itself when it launches, even the lack of a need for additional back and forth, you know when the property goes live, where now it's too late because now you're receiving guests already. It makes a lot of sense. What is it that you have found in your onboarding process is a step that most people just skip or go through very rapidly, that you think is a key differentiator in terms of quality for you, if you don't skip it, if you make sure you don't rush this particular part of your onboarding process?
Something that I think is worth doing. So in our case, we work a lot with new builds because we have a relationship with some developers. So it's a lot of new builds
Hmm.
more than transition or existing properties,
Okay.
which is definitely not the most sustainable. I would rather work with old properties that have been
Sure.
built before. But Nashville is Nashville. It's growing. It's a growing market, and it's a lot of new builds. And so
Right.
people, those investors, they need a property manager to help. So we do a lot with like new properties. So they're empty. They need to be designed, permitted. They need to be onboarded from A to Z.
Hmm.
So one thing that I found pretty worth doing is, if the owner himself is not gonna sleep in the property before we open, is to have a team member sleep in the property before we open, and sleep in every single bedroom if needed.
Hmm.
Like, check every single bedroom and every single bathroom. But you know how frustrating it is to launch a property where you checked everything, you have all your amenities, your beds are super well made, everything is there, you checked everything, the codes work, the access, everybody knows how to access the property,
Hmm.
you have your auto messages, they're perfect, the property is beautifully designed, it's brand new, it's great, you're like, yeah, let's open.
Hmm.
And the first guest stays and there's no hot water.
Mm.
Or the dishwasher was not plugged in, so it doesn't work.
Right.
Um, and these are little things that you don't necessarily think about testing, but in new condo buildings, you better
Hmm.
you better test that.
Yeah,
uh,
that's a
because that's
great
not.
example. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the reality is, the crazy thing about those little things is that the guests will not notice it if it's there. If it's
Mm,
there, like if the dishwasher works, if there's hot water, I mean, these are things you just expect to be there and working. But oh, are they gonna notice if it's not there? And oh, they're gonna have something to say if it's not working. So I think a lot about that in terms of also the design. Like, good design is so perfect and simple and just like well thought of, that you don't have to think about it, because
mhm.
like it's very comfortable. Like, you're in bed and you just turn around and like you can turn off the light, like little details like this of where you decide to place things for them to be convenient. But if it's not convenient, like then you're gonna notice it, and then you're
You're
gonna
right.
be, oh, I'm gonna have to stand up. I'm at a short-term rental property right now, where for me to connect my charger, my phone charger, I need to move my bed because there's no place for me to connect it right next to my. So little things like this, great idea to have someone sleep there. And yeah, I guess these are things that they would have caught. But if you're so in a rush to go live, you're like, no, no, we don't have the time to go there. Oh, it's gonna cost us 2 nights to have someone stay there. Well, yes, but how much is it going to save you after it goes live is the
Hmm.
question that you also should be asking.
Yes, absolutely.
No, that makes sense. And what about your role as a, founder, leader in the company? How has that role evolved from the moment that you started when you were doing everything, right, versus now where you probably are still doing everything, but there's a little bit more of a team, I hope. Like, where has your energy shifted towards? What are things that you know wanted to delegate at first but then realized it was not that easy, or things that you from the get-go knew you had to delegate and have managed to delegate successfully? Like, just walk us through the timeline of your evolution as a, as an entrepreneur, in terms of where you spend your time, and what does that look like today?
Um, I had I'm doing a coaching program now, a business coaching program to help me specifically with this type of questions,
Okay,
this
okay.
this evolution.
You're right.
And my coach told me not too long ago that it's very typical for an employee who's very good at one thing in a company,
Mm-hmm.
who's so good at it that they decide to start a company
Mm-hmm.
it, to actually let go of that specific department, that specific expertise to grow to the next level, which is being the CEO of the company. And I really gave it a lot of thoughts
Mm-hmm.
because when you're very good at something, it's your baby. Guest services. I love talking to guests. I love being involved with guests. I love finding solutions for guests and finding a way to make their trip better, their experience better. I used to I used to drive guests to the airport when it was snowing too much and they couldn't find an Uber and they started to stress out. Oh, no problem, I'll drive you, I'll come back. Or take them to Broadway when it was too long to wait for a lift. Yeah, no problem, we'll take you there. Or take them shopping when other guests were leaving um, liquor or things in the property. We would keep them, and if new guests, after checking their ID and everything, if new
Mm-hmm.
guests were like, oh, we're gonna get some booze, well, let me take you shopping, we have a little storage place there, maybe you'd like to take from our previous guests. This is
Mm-hmm.
something we do, speaking of sustainability, but donations. We have a donation program, and that is great to be able to donate to the rescue mission when guests leave leftovers. Could be pasta, could be rice, could be things that they left and they don't want to, like a pair of shorts that they left in the property and they don't want to use anymore, and they don't
Mm-hmm.
want us to send them. Then we can donate. So
Nice.
that's a good thing. So I used to be so involved all with guests and very, very the face of the company for the guests. And
Mm-hmm.
now, absolutely not at all. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a big step, big step. And with that comes also um, a margin of error that might be a little bit bigger than
Mm-hmm.
when you were in control.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's a challenge for me. That's not easy to
Mm-hmm.
accept, but I think it's part of the growth. And I'm still in this phase, I think. So
Mm-hmm.
uh,
What
yeah,
allowed
still.
you to take that first step of letting go? Was it just like it was at a point where you just couldn't handle it anymore on your own, or was it more so thinking, okay, if I want to go where I want to go, if I want to grow where I want to grow, I just could continue doing this, but it's not going to lead me to be where I want to be in a year or 2 years from now? Like, and then as far as like practically doing so, there's people that just don't let go. Like, there's
Mm,
people that to this day, continue being, the face with their guests because they just haven't managed to let go. And it's okay. And that's, it's a choice. But what allowed you to make that transition, especially because you were coming from a point of like struggling with it. Not it wasn't like just easy for you to delegate guest services in your case. So what how did you approach both the mindset aspect of accepting that you had to let go, as well as the practical aspect of doing so in a way that you would be comfortable with?
Mm. To me, it's really I wanted to free more time to be able to go visit my family uh, more often or longer period of time. So
Hmm.
really, my goal was I want to be able to go away for a month and be with my family, have quality time for a month without having to be on my phone talking to guests constantly. So that really was the motivation
Hmm.
to get out of being the face, the guest services manager. Basically,
Hmm.
you have
Hmm.
guest services
Hmm.
owners, well, the guest services manager, and finding a person who has the same values, connection to guests, and same appreciation of and the same creativity in the way she makes a guest experience um, exceptional. Caroline, and finding a person who I could trust to give the baby,
Hmm.
that was huge. I mean, that really made a difference, because if you don't trust the people, you give the baby to someone you're not sure and it might not work, but
Hmm.
the impact is very big, because if someone is not proactive, and if someone is not answering the phone, or it could be a big deal, you don't want to
Hmm.
have the 2-star review because we didn't answer the phone. That's terrible.
Hmm.
So yeah, finding a person who I could trust and who really showed me from the beginning that she was on it and she knew what to do, and she had the creativity, because I listened in some of your podcast, other people saying you cannot have an SOP for every single situation, and that's totally true. Like, you need to be creative.
Hmm.
Uh, a guest is showing up and the apartment is not ready, but it should be ready. What do you do? Don't
Hmm.
panic. There is something you can do. There are a lot of things you can do.
Hmm.
um, and Caroline knows how to do that, and she knows how to handle that, and therefore she can train other people to do it. So she can also train a team to do the same. So now it helped a lot, and now I feel very comfortable not
Hmm.
being involved in guest experience.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, you're right about it. It's also the mindset, the creativity that it takes to think on your feet, and I liked what you just said of like there is something you can do, right? There
Always.
is something you can do. I think that mindset is super powerful, especially when there's so many things that happen that are outside of our control. That it's very frustrating if you end up in a position where you feel like you cannot do anything about it, and that's also what you communicate to the guest. It's going to be frustrating for you because you're going to feel bad about having to tell the guest that something happened outside of your control and that you cannot do anything about it, and it's going to be bad for the guest because they're going to be like, well, you're not solving my problem, right? Whereas, and it's there's a I think there's a psychological term for this, which is having an internal versus an external locus of control, which is just
Mm,
like, do you perceive that things happen to you, or do you perceive that you can make things happen, type of thing, right? And both are true. It's just two perspectives, right? Something can happen, and it's just recognizing that whatever happens, there is something you can do about it, right? And maybe it's listening to the guests complain for 20 minutes, right? You're not changing anything, but now they feel understood. Maybe showing up and listening to the guests complain in person. Now they're gonna be like, okay, well, at least you're here. At least you're showing me that you care. And
yeah.
sometimes it's going to be about doing other things, right? But there is something that can be done, and I think that mindset is very powerful.
How to manage a complaint. This is something you learn in a hospitality program.
Hmm.
how to deal with a complaint. There are several steps to take.
What are the steps? Do you remember them, more
Oh
or less?
yeah, yeah, we use them every day.
Listen, I'm sure is part of it.
Yeah, the first step is to listen. Absolutely,
Hmm.
listen and empathize. The second step is to summarize, to make sure you understood. And
Hmm.
they usually say, if you tell your guests, okay, so just so I understand, I'm going to exaggerate a little bit, but just so I understand, you thought there was a swimming pool in the hotel, and I'm telling you there is none, so you're very upset. Is that correct? You're very disappointed. Is that correct? And you want the guest to say yes, a big yes. That's exactly what I'm saying. Yes. And then it's like, okay, I got you. So the next step is to, of course, provide a solution. And sometimes the solution is not ideal, but you want to be able to provide a solution.
Hmm.
And sometimes you can give a solution right away. So listen, I'm really sorry about that. It is very clearly stated on our website, but you might have not seen it. It's totally fine. Listen, I have this swimming pool. This hotel has a swimming pool, and they do pass resort pass. So you can buy a pass, and tomorrow you can spend the day at the pool. How about that? Or you provide whatever solution it is, and how about that? Would that be okay for you? Would that be acceptable? And you want to also hear the yes, thank you, I appreciate you taking the time, etc.
Hmm.
Or sometimes you don't have a solution right away, and you say, okay, so listen, I'm going to get back to you on this. I'll find you a solution. I need an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it is that you need. You are transparent, and you say, listen,
Hmm.
give me 2 hours. I'll find you the pack and play. I'll bring it to you. I just need 2 hours to locate it, find it, bring it to you. You'll have it
Hmm.
in 2 hours. Is that okay? And then you follow up. Always following up. Hi, just want to make sure that everything is going well. And is there anything else that you need?
Hmm.
Always asking. And is there anything else that you need? So that's the very,
Yeah, the
I guess,
playbook. The
the
playbook.
training way of doing it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I like
It's
it. I like it.
natural when you do it.
Because the thing is, like, if you miss any one of these steps, it's kind of, again, going back to the design. You feel it when it's not there, but you don't feel it when it's there. When all of those steps are there, you feel good. Like, as a guest, you're like, okay, this person cared, this person listened, this person understood, this person summarized, right? And so I feel like not only they listened, but they also, made me see. And I think there's a this term is also referred to in some books as labeling, like repeating back what
Mm.
the person said. It sounds like, it seems like, this is what you're saying. Does that sound right? And you want them to
Yes, using
acknowledge that,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And then it's basically, okay, perfect, now I'm heard, now I'm understood, I know they really got what I'm going through. And then it's like, yeah, just offering a solution, being transparent when you don't have one. And then the follow up, right? Because you could throw a solution at someone and then not follow up, and then turns out the guest, is still upset because the
That's
solution
absolutely.
was not implemented, it didn't go through, it didn't happen the way they were expecting. But if you don't follow up, you won't know.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine you arrive in a hotel and your room is not ready, and so the receptionist tells you, um, you know what, or I don't know, like, oh, you complain about something, and the receptionist says, you know what, I'm gonna send you a glass of champagne to your
Hmm.
room, um, to compensate, to compensate, and to make it up for you.
Hmm.
And so the receptionist talks to the bar. Hey, can you please bring a glass of champagne to room 205? And they forgot. If the receptionist doesn't follow up with that guest, hi, just making sure that you got your glass of champagne and that you enjoyed it, you will never know that it was not delivered, and you make the experience even worse. So
Hmm.
yeah, follow-up is
You
important.
make the experience even worse because now you're expecting some champagne and you don't have one. That's yeah. And I also like, other people have said this here in the show, where it's like they want to. like if everything goes well in the guest experience process, then they're happy because everything went well. But like especially like true hospitality professionals are like, I wish I could have shown them what I was capable of doing if something had not gone well. So it's kind of embracing the fact that something will inevitably sooner or later with this guest or with the next not go well, because that's your opportunity to show them what you're capable of. And all of a
Yes.
sudden is not like, ah, something went wrong. It's like, yes, something went wrong, let's show them what we can do when
Hmm.
something goes wrong.
Yeah, embrace complaints, because complaints are great ways to turn the experience into a 5-star review. You know.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and especially these days, I mean, it's always been crucial those reviews, but these days more so than ever, when you have OTAs chasing out of the platform those that don't comply, and it's tricky, right? Because sometimes there's unfair guests that you can do everything to try to solve their problem, and they're still not going to be, satisfied with it. How do you deal with that in terms of trying to make sure, because one thing that I've heard some people say it's unfair, let's say on OTAs like Airbnb, is that let's say if you offer a refund or some level of compensation, like for an issue that took place, the guest accepts that refund or compensation, but then the guest can still leave a review, right? And then what
Mhm.
if the guest still leaves a bad review? Then you're like, okay, I did everything, I even compensated, and they're still leaving me with a bad review. So how do you try to, with your hospitality best practices, make sure that okay, you're doing this to solve the problem, but also try to, in a subtle, gentle way, let the guests know that you would appreciate this being reflected in the review, right? It's tricky.
Yeah. I don't know if it's if I'm the only one to think that it's harder than it used to be pre-COVID to
Hmm.
satisfy guests. And
Hmm.
um, I don't know, like I never had less than a 5-star reviews in 2 years, and then all of a sudden I got one 4-star review, and you're like, whoa, interesting. And it's
Hmm.
like everything was great, 4 stars. So we call like,
Mm.
hi. Just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. Your experience is very important to me. What justifies the 4-star reviews review
Hmm.
that you left? What could have we done better?
Hmm.
And then also, I think you can ask guests if they would consider changing the review, change the review, or
Hmm.
modify it, or remove it. I know that OTAs don't want you to do that, and I get it, but in some cases, I think it's justified, especially
Hmm.
if they about something that's completely out of your control,
Hmm.
and you try to explain. But really, really, most likely, it's uh, to not get that review is really to help them out during their stay. When it gets challenging is when the guest does not say anything and leaves and then complains about something. They don't give you the opportunity to resolve an issue that they are having during their stay. That's when it
Hmm.
gets challenging, because outside of that, anything can be addressed during a stay. It's very
Hmm.
rare when you cannot provide, and most people are reasonable. You have an issue, it's fixed in the next 2 hours. You should be okay, right? I mean, unless it spoiled your entire stay.
Hmm.
Uh, but otherwise, like if it was just something that can be resolved easily.
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah. No, and I like what you say. Like, don't let them leave the property without you knowing that
mm,
they had a good experience. Because if they leave, it's
it's too
too
late.
late, right? You
Yeah.
can no longer do anything about it. I think that's a good takeaway. And I think the other takeaway from what you said, which I've also heard before, in terms of like, oh, best experience, I had an amazing time, 4 stars. You're like, come on, why why do you do this to me? You don't know what a 4 star does to my averages here. Maybe it's like letting the guests know in advance, like this is the rating score, like this is how it works. This is what excellent means, and guess
Yes.
what? 4 actually means we did a not too good job, right? So like kind of like letting them know as part of their checkout instructions, like this is what we would appreciate you consider to rate us based on how your experience was. And hey, by the way, if your experience was anything but perfect, please let us know through this same thread so we can do something about it. So you also have one last chance to do something about it before it goes into the listing.
Yes, and I think also what's important is to check on the guest after they check in, because if
Hmm.
there is anything that they didn't think it would worth mentioning, but I don't know, they wanted to use the grill and there's no gas.
Hmm.
Well, if you tell me that, like first I'm going to be very disappointed that we didn't provide the gas tank, and I'm going to tell you, as a guest, like this is not acceptable, and that shouldn't be the case because I want you to be able to use the grill.
Hmm.
It's a great
Hmm.
amenity.
Yeah.
But if you tell me, I'll go buy one and bring it to you right away, and
Hmm.
then you can continue with your stay. If you think, because some guests are just, oh well, we couldn't use the grill, but no big deal, and
Hmm.
um, you don't to ask them if everything is okay after they arrive. They might not think about telling you, and you could have made their experience better. Doesn't matter if they're going to leave a good or bad review at this point. It's really for you as a host. You're like, no, 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 I could have made your experience better. uh,
Hmm.
if it's not that important to you, like, I want to do it. Just tell me
Hmm.
what
That's awesome. No, I love that. And I love this mindset. And then it's also challenging in terms of, like, there's the ideology of unreasonable hospitality, right? Which, I mean, a book was written about it and now it's mainstream and in the industry at least. And it makes a lot of sense, right? In theory, all the sense in the world. And then you look at what is it that this author was selling in the unreasonable hospitality book, and it was, you know luxury fine dining. So you're like, you could say, okay, well, they could afford it. They could afford to go the extra mile, and it's not all about numbers, right? It's also about, like you said, just the feeling of knowing you're a good host, just the overall, guest satisfaction, whether they
I
leave that star review or not. But at the same time, we're also a business here that needs to at least break even, and hopefully make a little profit, and be able to sustain its operation. Not even like, we're not talking like making crazy money here, we're talking sustain its operation, right? And
Yeah.
so it's like, okay, well, then what makes it possible from a numbers perspective to go the extra mile, to
Yeah, exactly.
deliver that extra, hospitality? So what is it? And I think there's two ways of looking at it. It's either you sell, luxury accommodations, like high end stuff, where that nightly rate, allows you to go the extra mile, so to speak. Because if you're selling budget, $50 a night, property, is it,
I guess
it's a
have
little
different.
bit harder. It's a little bit harder. Yeah. And you're also expecting it to be different. But then the other way to look at it, with which I was speaking this morning, with our CEO about, is that at Angel Host, is that it's also the lifetime value of that guest. If you look at it as, this guest might not be paying a lot, but if I'm building a brand here, and if I'm
Mhm.
gonna be retargeting them for future stays or whatever, this guest might not be paying a lot, but might be, staying with us 2 3 times, 4 times during their lifetime. Then
Mhm.
all of a sudden you can consider going the extra mile, even if the rate is low. So I think that's also an interesting perspective.
At Four Seasons, they have this culture that anybody who walks into a hotel, you give him the same attention. You give him, whether they're young or old, they look poor or rich, whatever it is,
Hmm.
you give them the same attention. You offer a cup. You offer a glass of water. You offer to tour the building, etc. Because you never know that person who's 20
Hmm.
today, when that person is 40, what they're going to think about Four Seasons. Are they going to be a client? Are they going to use it? You never know how they're going to talk about their experience to other people who might be clients of the hotel, etc., etc. So yeah, exactly. I mean, everybody should be treated the same way and provided the same level of service, because
Hmm.
you never know what is gonna, how
Yeah.
much it's gonna drive for you. I mean, in Nashville, there are a lot of people who move to Nashville from other cities, and they need a place to stay when they move, when they
Hmm.
first move to Nashville. And so this is a great clientele because they're gonna stay a few weeks with you, and
Hmm.
then um, they might talk about your property to another person who's moving in, or maybe they have family visiting while they're
Hmm.
here and they need another unit to stay, etc. So
Hmm.
yeah, each guest is can bring another guest in a way.
Amazing. Amazing. No, yeah, exactly. You don't know. And the opposite is also true. You not providing a good experience, all of a sudden you have a guest talking negatively about you, and that nowadays can go a long way, and you really don't want that. So no, I think it's important to, first of all, it's important to want to do the right thing just because it's the right thing, regardless of the consequences, both positive or negative. And then the second thing is, if that is not enough for you, like if doing the right thing just because it's the right thing is not compelling enough to you, well, think long term and you'll see that there's going to be an impact, both positive or negative, from you not delivering the quality of service that is top notch. And we're seeing it. I mean, how many operators are unfortunately no longer being able to survive, because of, listings suspended, and they're basically, yeah, that's scary right there. That's scary, the whole listing suspension situation going on. It's kind of scary.
Yes, and sometimes it's for something so minor, and yeah, and you don't know necessarily when Airbnb removes your listing. They don't
Yeah,
tell you. They
they
don't give
just
you
do
a
it.
heads up.
Yeah, we wish they did. Yeah, no, it's tough. All right, well, I think if anything, this makes quality more important than ever. And I think you're a great example of someone that takes that, um, as part of their core sort of values and priorities, and even sustainability. I'm happy you share those insights with us. Just final closing thoughts, Melissa. Where do you see, what's your vision for Humming Host in the next year or 2 years? Where would you like to be, and what's ahead for you?
Yes, my goal in the next few years is to find a piece of land where I can develop my own uh, tiny resort, cabin resort concept
Nice.
that is going to be very sustainable, eco-friendly, and educational too.
Hmm.
Um, because something I've learned and I love cultivate is how much you can teach by having guests from all over the world
Okay.
or all over the country during one trip, and how much you can actually teach and educate people on what they can do to make their carbon footprint a little bit lower.
Interesting. So you want to see your guests coming in as a platform for you to spread the message of sustainability, and whatever is in place here, guess what, you can also go back home and continue doing it this way, and this is the impact that this can have. Wow, that's very
Yeah.
interesting. That definitely is taking your business to another level of impact, because now it's not just what you do, but it's what these people can continue potentially, hopefully, doing around the world when they're back home.
Yeah, yeah, and it's also being owner of the property
For sure.
would be. I see a lot of advantages of being owner
Definitely.
of course, because you can really do it your own way and you have no one to tell you I don't want this way, or I don't want that this way, could be really your vision
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
is at the center. And I think
Definitely.
that's what I'm envisioning
Very
for
powerful.
the business.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Well, listen, Melissa, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. I could keep you here for hours, but we have to wrap it up at some point. And it's been super insightful. It's been fun. It's been productive. I really appreciated the conversation, and we'll stay in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too.